Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Democrats are going full steam ahead with the impeachment probe tonight. Subpoenas, letters, warnings that suggest Speaker Pelosi was dead serious when she made her announcement exactly 1 week ago tonight.
Today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry.
I'm joined now by Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She chairs one of those committees and has been leading this charge to hold Trump accountable. Good evening.
Good evening.
What's changed in the past week, and is the Ukraine scandal, in your view, worse than the other issues facing Donald Trump, or just a collective, a kind of a collective explosion?
Well, the Ukraine scandal certainly, I think, gives us factual information quickly. We know the telephone call was made to the president. Now we know basically what was said on the telephone call, and we know who was on the telephone call. And so I think that this gives us great information to move forward with impeachment. And as the Speaker has said, should be perhaps the focus of what we do. But all of the other things that the 6 committee chairs have been working with will be discussed. And we don't know exactly how many of these issues will be in the impeachment resolution. But we're going to talk about them. But yes, Ukraine is going to be a focus.
And Congresswoman, I want to ask you about something you said. As you know, and many of our viewers know, you speak your mind. Many people like that. And as I think you know, many people disagree with you. It's politics.
That's right.
I want to read something you said today to get a fuller understanding. You said, with regard to Donald Trump, he's using mob language. He's implying people should be killed for whistleblowing. Impeachment's not good enough for Trump. He needs to be imprisoned and placed in solitary confinement. But for now, impeachment is the imperative.
That's right.
I ask you tonight, are you speaking literally, and do you have any concern you're prejudging the House impeachment and Senate trial process by declaring he should be, I guess, convicted and held in solitary?
No, not really. As you said, I said impeachment is the imperative. I did express myself in ways to show how terrible I think he is and how he really should be punished. But, of course, impeachment is what we're focused on right now.
With regard to allegations of obstruction, one of the things that the facts show this White House has done more extremely than others, including really the Nixon White House, is try to defy a lot of different lawful requests from your committee, from others. When we see multiple chairs say this is now going to be itself evidence of obstruction, what does that mean? And do you join the other chairs in that? Are you saying that if you don't get responses by a certain time, what happens to those White House or agency officials?
Well, I do agree that, this president has instructed those who we have been subpoenaing not to come before our committee, not to cooperate. It is outrageous in what he is doing. And now that we have more information, factual information, for example, that Pompeo was on that telephone call, he must respond to this subpoena. He must come forward, or he could be charged, I believe, with obstruction of the impeachment. And I don't know everything that goes along with that, but I certainly hope that it means we can drag him in or we can arrest him.
Wow. I want to play for you some of what you said during the last time these issues came up, during the Clinton impeachment. Take a look.
Yes. This is a bunch of baloney. I'm not a lawyer, but I could argue this case in court and win. I think Mr. Ken Starr is the poster boy for all of the bad prosecutors in America.
Obviously, many of the facts are different. What do you say to people this time around to argue that Donald Trump's case, potentially articles of impeachment against him, are different than those against President Clinton?
Oh, I think decidedly different. I think that, if you take a look at this president, ever since he defined himself during his primary election, in the way that he treated his peers, the way that he called names on into the election, the way that he talked about grabbing women by their private parts, what we know about his defense of Putin, and the fact that he has ignored the intelligence community in identifying that they certainly was involved with undermining our elections, hacking into the DNC, the way he has insisted on private meetings with our enemy, that is Putin, and the way that he's insisted on private meetings with Kim Jong-un, on and on and on. This president has advocated violence. This president, in my estimation, was eligible for impeachment long before this. Yeah. And it does not even compare with what was going on with the Clinton impeachment. And so I do believe that we now have factual information about him attempting to engage the president of the Ukraine in getting dirt on Biden. The telephone call was made. The information is there. And this just adds fuel to the fire.
It is Wednesday, the 2nd of October of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of this meddlesome priest? Which one? Well, I would never put Robert Jeffress in the position of a priest, heretic maybe, but not a priest. Yeah, he's the one that Trump tweeted out that, maybe a civil war would be just perfect. A very perfect civil war. Why would they want to impeach over that? It was a perfect civil war. Well, sedition is sedition. I just want you to know. Even if it's with in consort with the illegal and illegitimate president. I wonder if there's a precedent for that. No, there's not. We're treading on new ground, folks. Yeah, blazing our own new trail of how to save democracy. That's what makes America great, is that we're able to adapt to the situation, take the proverbial bull by the horns, and right the ship. I know I'm mixing every metaphor in the world, but that's why we're here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Speaking of mixing metaphors, Trump took an Obama joke and now is going to make it into policy. He's telling border agents to shoot immigrants in the legs to slow them down and have them start to bleed out so that the alligators he's going to ship to the border and put in the border moat, can eat them up. That's what he fantasizes about. And that was an Obama joke. A joke about how far the Republicans would go. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, that's so funny. And now we're here. We think it's a joke. Oh, yeah, how could anybody say that? I must be joking. He fantasizes about this stuff. He's been fantasizing about killing brown people ever since a Puerto Rican probably got into Studio 54 before he did. I am in the VIP line. You can't let that Puerto Rican go in there. before me? Do you know who I am? That's the kind of, I don't know, spoiled rich boy Trump was and is. Now he has the levers of power. Everybody talked about what a dimwit he is, and he didn't know how to exercise the power, and thank God he didn't, and now it seems like he does, and you know why? Because he got help. The Russians were not able to micro-target counties and lesser in the 2016 election without help. That is a nuance of American politics that is very hard to comprehend and weaponize. But if you got help... So Trump has gotten help, and now they're going around the world convincing other countries. In fact, Australia just agreed, we'll prove Trump's conspiracy theories because, well, it's good for our nation. Meaning, with all the military aid that they're getting from us, would they really want to jeopardize that to a madman? It could be that they're just humoring him. Could be. Pompeo and Barr have been making the rounds, Barr in particular, talking to every right-wing extremist, fascisti in Italy. He's talking to the fascist neo-Nazis in Austria. He's talking to the National Front in France. And he's even got that Hungarian Nazi contacting his Hungarian Nazi contacts. I'm looking at you, Sebastian Gorka. They're trying to convince us that it was the Democrats that conspired with the Ukrainians to make Vlad look bad and to make it look like Russia hacked us. The extent of these conspiracy theories are so complex as a Rube Goldberg path. What's the first rule of conspiracy theories? The simplest explanation is the truth, not the most complex. If you have to turn yourself into a Rube Goldberg pretzel to make that conspiracy theory work, it probably isn't the truth. Now, coupled with that, I'm not only being attacked by these traitor bots in the community pages here on Facebook here in Southern Oregon for being just merely a Democrat. Oh, no. No, it's much more severe than that. And they are pushing every single line. They're on the same page. And the memes and the photograph memes just come out as a waterfall. Click. Enter. Click. 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 Enter. 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 That fast. While I'm searching my library of a proper photograph to put on this great meme I just came up with, I come back and there's 20 put up before I even have a chance to respond to one. What is that called? Yeah. We know. And they're working very, 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 very hard, trying to convince us that the Democrats killed Seth Rich. I mean, this is all ground that has been discredited. And they're throwing it back out there because you know why? Barr, Trump, Pompeo, etc., 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 are working with the Russians to prove the Russians did not attack us when we know they attacked us. I know there's not a declared war. Congress didn't declare a war against Russia. Russia declared war against us. So I know technically that's not treason. But it's certainly not in the best interest of the United States. Donald Trump is not the United States. We are. Pompeo saying that he's going to prevent former State Department employees who were ousted by he and others from testifying in front of Congress as part of Congress's constitutional duty. I know. The Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. We heard that during Bush. And then impeachment was off the table, and look at where we are now. Give a rat a cookie. They're not only going to want a glass of milk when they're repugs, they want the whole dairy farm. In fact, they want the whole dairy industry. A cookie is never enough. 8 years of being smacked across the face. Every time Obama reached his hand across the aisle, he got smacked. And now they want to try him for treason. I wish Obama had been an angry black man. They called him that, and they feared that he would finally become the angry black man, and some of us wished he would. That's the problem with us. Ballots, not bullets. That's not a problem. But you know what? If we get slapped on the face, I don't think we should be turning the other cheek more than twice. Turn it once, okay. Turn it again, maybe. But that third time, I'm telling you, we don't have to hit back. But we can sue their asses, take them to court, and throw them in jail. And we don't have to be nice about it. Because they never are. Fantasizing about killing human beings and then throwing them to the alligators. Only a lizard brain would think of that. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe? Well, Auntie Maxine is not having any more of it. And since we can't have Donald Trump in solitary confinement, impeachment will have to do. And Pompeo? We're going after his little dog Pompeo, too. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, an entrance exam official agreed to plead guilty in the U.S. college cheating scandal. Democrats see huge opportunities as voter registration soars in Georgia. The only question is how many is that guy going to be able to kick off the rolls before the election? And he's working on it now. And Elizabeth Warren slammed Facebook for refusing to protect our democracy after audio of Zuckerberg leaked. He's not a nice guy. Nope, he's not. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Vatican police raided the top offices of the Holy See Secretary of State for financial irregularities. Oh, that investigation continues. And Emmanuel Macron met with freed Ukrainian filmmaker Oleg Sentsov. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. The bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page, from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the leftish, there is our link to our Patreon site, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. We had a bit of a technical problem this morning. I don't know what happened. I was able to get a hold of a couple of members of the crew, and we put our heads together, and I don't know, maybe it fixed itself. But there's been a level of degradation in the software and the MacBook. So we're inching it along. This workhorse has been working very hard for the last 4 years. You know, Netroots Radio has been broadcasting 24/7, 365 for the last 8 years. Halfway in that trek, we had to replace the previous workhorses with the current ones. And they're getting tired, I can tell. So thank you to those who have been so very generous, those who have increased their monthly patronage, and also to our new Patreons. Thank you for joining the group and helping us out in our civic duty of resistance, which we have been tasked by the founders, as they originally intended so many decades ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and we do thank Tom, of course. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I, of course, post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that linked up on social media, because that's really where the source material is. It is, all of it, right there. Follow the show on Twitter at CookbookWest and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and really wherever you get podcasts, that's where we are. The State Department Inspector General late last night called for an emergency session with 8 congressional committees, 4 from the House and 4 from the Senate, the appropriate intelligence, appropriations, oversight, and I believe judiciary committees in each house, each chamber, actually. And I had to put myself not only in a bubble, but because we had some sort of tough technical difficulty this morning, I was working hard to try to get the machines working, especially the broadcaster. So I was not able to get up to speed about that particular story. But the Inspector General of the State Department is meeting in an emergency secret session with those committees, the senior members of the committees, by the way, and over something of such dire importance that he called this meeting in the middle of a recess. Well, it's not the middle, but the beginning. I'm just giving a rhetorical flourish. Oh, my gosh. So, we have that going for us, which is nice. Trump, of course, is calling for civil war, and the Oath Keepers, you know, those cops, they're going, you mean we get to shoot people? More than we are now? God, that's going to be fun. There's one side fantasizing about killing fellow Americans, and it's not Antifa. I don't know. Maybe the NRA looks at this as probably a growth industry. Maybe liberals will start buying guns obsessively and without any rational thought to what they're doing. Maybe. Ballots, not bullets. All right, let's start with this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. You know, Felicity only got 14 days. Remember that. Alex Dubozinskis of Reuters brings us this offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. An administrator tied to the U.S. college cheating scandal has agreed to plead guilty to a conspiracy charge and give information to authorities on other people involved in the scheme, according to court papers filed yesterday, Tuesday. Igor Dvorsky, age 53, is accused of allowing cheating on college entrance exams he administered in the Los Angeles area. You know, like Rodeo Drive, Beverly Hills, maybe Pasadena, maybe. Prosecutors will ask a federal judge in Boston, where the case is being heard, to give Dvorsky a sentence of 2 years in prison, which is at the low end of what he could have faced if found guilty at trial. Dvorsky's attorney, Melissa Weinberger, did not respond to requests for comment. In all, 50 celebrities, business people, athletic coaches, and others have been charged in the scandal in which parents paid bribes to get their spoiled little brats into prestigious universities. Oh, I'm sorry. That rhetorical flourish was in this reporter's opinion. Revelations about the plot sent shockwaves through the academic world and the college prep industry when prosecutors filed charges in March. Really? Back in the day when I was going to university? You know, back in the day. We used to have a little mocking song to the, or rendition of the USC University of Southern California fight song, because that was always known as like where all the socias and the prestigious celebrity kids went, right? And our little mocking song went something like this. We are SC. We are SC. We pay our fee. We get our degree. Because it wasn't really known as a, shall we say, an academic school. So when the prep cheating scandal arose and celebrities were ensnared, how shocking, really, was it to anybody living in Southern California? Several other people tied to the scheme have pleaded guilty to conspiracy or other charges. And Desai Martin of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Over the past 11 months, more than 350,000 residents registered to vote in Georgia. According to a report out of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Georgia now has almost 7.4 million registered voters, which is the most the state has ever seen. Of the newly registered voters, 47% self-identify as racial minorities, and 40% are under the age of 30. According to surveys of voters, these two groups are much more likely to support Democrats over Republicans, so of course, they will be kicked off the voting rolls, and if that can't be done, how many of those people will be put in jail at the most appropriate time? Conveniently, I might add. Racial minorities? Broken windows, people. Broken windows. Many of the new voters were added to the rolls thanks to automatic voter registration as residents obtain a driver's license, just like how it is here in Oregon. Thousands also came from voter registration drives in the state. Gonna have to make those illegal. Anybody registering anybody to vote should be thrown in jail for being a threat and an enemy of the state. Rapid population growth and changing demographics in Georgia provide Democrats huge opportunities. Lauren Grow-Wargo, Stacey Abrams' former campaign manager, told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, each eligible Georgian who moves to Georgia and becomes a voter is more likely to vote Democratic than Republican. And if you listen to the fever rants on these community Facebook pages here in Southern Oregon, at least, we aren't Americans. We're some parasite that has grown on the body politic of whatever they think the United States is. I don't know what they think it is, but it is pretty colorless, shall we say. In fact, it lacks any color at all. Willis brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Senator Elizabeth Warren yesterday, Tuesday, slammed Facebook for repeatedly fumbling their responsibility to protect our democracy after audio surfaced of CEO Mark Zuckerberg defending unethical practices and remarking on what might happen if she were ever to become president. Well, a lot of people are saying, you don't have to try so hard to get her elected. Once Zuckerberg says something and says, this is what I like or don't like, lines in the sand are being drawn right then and there. The Verge first published the audio of Zuckerberg's remarks, which was recorded during employee meetings in July, yesterday morning on Tuesday. Noting their outsized effect on global culture and finance, Warren, who is currently running for the Democratic presidential nomination, has been calling for major tech companies like Facebook to be broken up and further regulated. In the recording, Zuckerberg lashed out at that notion, and who wouldn't? When you've built this baby from a dorm room and you dropped out of college to make more money than God ever intended anyone to have, you don't just say, oh yeah, let's just break it up. No, when you've attained that power without ever taking a humanities class, and during your formative years, when you really haven't identified what your soul is even, what does your soul become when you make bargains with the devil? You have someone like Elizabeth Warren who thinks that the right answer is to break up the companies. If she gets elected president, then I would bet that we will have a legal challenge, and I would bet that we will win the legal challenge, Zuckerberg said. And does that still suck for us? Yeah. Warren later responded to that comment. What would really suck is we didn't fix a corrupt system that lets giant companies like Facebook engage in illegal anti-competitive practices, stomp on consumer privacy rights, and repeatedly fumble their responsibility to protect our democracy. Zuckerberg also was heard in the audio minimizing concerns about those contracted by his company to moderate content. Recent reports have revealed in detail the mental trauma some of those contractors have experienced while weeding out depraved content like murder footage that has made its way onto the Facebook platform. Some of the reports, I think, are a little overdramatic. From digging into them and understanding what's going on, Zuckerberg mocked. It's not that most people are just looking at just terrible things all day long, but there really are bad things that people have to deal with, and making sure that people get the right counseling and space and ability to take breaks, and get a Snickers. Well, that's the support they need, and it's really an important thing. Really. In audio, Zuckerberg also discusses an upcoming product called Lasso that the company hopes to use to fend off the popular app TikTok. Facebook's tactic of using its outsized power in the marketplace to tilt the playing field in its favor has been a frequent topic of discussion over the last few years, and antitrust concerns have been raised. Facebook reached a $5 billion settlement with the Federal Trade Commission for failing to protect user data, the second largest fine ever issued by the FTC. And that was because it was revealed that not long after the 2016 election, it had played an unwitting role in foreign efforts to influence voters and had violated users' privacy. I wonder how witting it was. They only had a dedicated room to help out Trump and his campaign and their new little tech guy. And they brought Cambridge Analytica into it. How unwitting was it? Well, it was also fined $1.49 billion by the European Union, that's in EU's, in March for abusive advertising practices. In fact, Facebook accepted an ad buy for Trump's latest campaign ad in which absolute abject lies predicated upon 4chan, fever dream conspiracy theories are presented as, well, it's just a campaign ad. In late September, Zuckerberg met with Trump in the Oval Office as part of a public relations effort to dissuade congressional attempts to regulate the company. Congressional. He's on the good side of Trump. Everything's fine. Okay, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, in space, no one can hear you cry. In a recent interview, director James Gray stated he wasn't Kubrick, but the influence of Kubrick in his 1968 classic, 2001: A Space Odyssey, is undeniable in Gray's latest, Ad Astra. In the latter, set in the near future, as we're told at the beginning, space travel has been commercialized. We see the same logos in a spaceport that greet one today in airports, as astronaut Roy McBride, played by Brad Pitt in a career high performance, embarks on a journey to find his long-lost father, Tommy Lee Jones. Nearly 30 years prior, the elder McBride had embarked on a seemingly ill-fated journey to near Neptune, where a search for intelligent life could be conducted more efficiently. He and his crew had apparently disappeared. In the riveting start to the film, a surge destroys a ground-based space antenna that Roy is working on, and we soon find out that that surge, one of a number that had occurred of late and which could threaten all life within light years, is suspected of being related to the power source used by the elder McBride's mission. It's not a spoiler to say that the two are connected, but the film really isn't about that connection, but rather about human connection. And Roy is by all appearances cut off from that. Thanks to his father's abandonment, he is cold and aloof, technically proficient, but barely functional, as witnessed by his estrangement from his wife Eve, played by an underused Liv Tyler. As Roy's journey continues, comparisons to another movie classic, Apocalypse Now, are also inescapable. The ending of Ad Astra is unsatisfying in the conventional sense, but it will leave you with food for thought and the memories of a fascinating journey. Actually, two journeys. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. A marine heat wave in 2016 killed off a full third of Australia's Great Barrier Reef, the largest coral reef system in the world.
It's terrible watching your favorite ecosystems slowly die.
Carly Kenkel is a marine biologist at the University of Southern California who's studied that coral bleaching event. Bleaching occurs when the waters around corals become too cold, or too salty, or too hot, but mostly too hot. And then the symbiotic algae that live inside corals, which are photosynthetic food factories, abandon the coral, which causes them to die.
Because they're losing their nutritional source, so they're essentially starving to death.
But coral can house multiple species of algae, some more heat tolerant than others. So sometimes, in the face of stress, the hardier algae proliferate, and that change offsets the damage caused by the exodus of the more sensitive species. That process is called shuffling. Kenkel and her colleagues studied shuffling in corals affected by the 2016 bleaching event on the Great Barrier Reef, and they found that adult corals can actually pass those reshuffled algal residents along to their offspring in their eggs, pointing to a possible way successive generations of coral could adapt to warmer waters.
If your mom can kind of prime you for the environment that you might be experiencing, that presumably would improve your fitness.
The details are in the journal Scientific Reports. So can this help corals beat back bleaching?
The pace of climate change and the frequency and intensity of these stress events is such that I don't think this is enough.
In the face of so many threats, even this trick may fail to provide relief for the reef. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Felicity Huffman, for her part in the college admissions cheating scandal, has been sentenced to 14 days. 14 days. What are we to make of that? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Felicity Huffman pled guilty to 2 federal criminal charges based on her having paid $15,000 to facilitate cheating on her daughter's college admission test. The prosecution argued for 30 days, and the federal court judge sentenced her to 14. In contrast, consider Kelly Williams Bolar. Bolar is an African-American single mom in Akron, Ohio, who was sentenced to 5 years for using her father's address in order for her child to attend public school in a nearby suburban school district. Thankfully, Ms. Williams Bolar received a commutation from then Ohio Governor John Kasich, so she didn't serve most of that time. Ms. Williams Bolar's attorney for the commutation, David Singleton, commenting on Felicity Huffman's sentence, noted that when you are rich and white in this country, there is a different justice system. And Attorney Singleton is correct. Poor people, often persons of color, are locked in jail for weeks, months, and years, presumed innocent, but awaiting trial behind bars because they can't make their bail. And then, if convicted, are often sentenced to more time than white defendants for precisely the same crime. But the solution to the racial and wealth disparities in the criminal justice system is not to sentence Felicity Huffman to more time, but rather to sentence other defendants to less. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. Did you enjoy a cup of coffee to start your day this morning? Well, on this day in labor history, the year was 2007. That was the day that Starbucks agreed to post information about union rights on an employee bulletin board at its store in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The International Workers of the World, or Wobblies, were attempting to organize the baristas at that store. The IWW accused Starbucks of interfering with the right to form a union. Starbucks management consistently points to better-than-average benefits provided for their employees as a reason against unionization. Starbucks management decided to settle the Grand Rapids dispute by letting the union information to go up before the case went through the full Labor Review Board process. This was just one incidence of the IWW's attempt to organize Starbucks workers. The IWW began its outreach efforts at Starbucks in 2004. One of the most pressing issues facing the baristas was scheduling. Like many in the service industry, they are subject to so-called flexible scheduling. Computer software programs create scheduling aimed at reducing labor costs. The result of these programs is often inconsistent and unpredictable hours. This scheduling makes it difficult for workers to establish a budget or plan for childcare. In 2014, the New York Times published a story on this kind of scheduling, featuring the difficulties faced by one Starbucks worker. In a study published also in 2014, they showed that Starbucks stores had 14% less employees on average in 2011 through 13 than they did in 2005 through 2007. Starbucks is not alone in using computer scheduling. Efforts to cut labor costs continue to have devastating impact on the day-to-day lives of workers in the service economy. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The Inspector General of the State Department, Steve Linick, has reached out to a group of congressional committees with what they describe as an urgent request to brief committee staff about documents related to the State Department and Ukraine. The bipartisan briefing is expected to be delivered sometime Wednesday in a classified setting. It'll include staff from House and Senate committees, including Intelligence, Foreign Relations, Oversight, and Appropriations. Now, in response to the Democratic subpoenas for 5 current and former State Department officials for interviews and depositions, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo sent a letter accusing Democrats of attempting to intimidate and bully them, writing, quote, "Let me be clear. I will not tolerate such tactics. I will use all means at my disposal to prevent and expose any attempts to intimidate the dedicated professionals whom I am proud to lead and serve alongside at the State Department. Therefore, the 5 officials subject to your letter may not attend any interview or deposition without counsel from the executive branch present to ensure that the executive branch's constitutional authority to control the disclosure of confidential information, including deliberative matters and diplomatic communications, is not impaired." It went on from there, but that gives you the general gist of the letter. Well, the response from Chairman Engel, Schiff, and Cummings was only 7 sentences long, but it packed a punch. Quote, "Secretary Pompeo was reportedly on the call when the president pressed Ukraine to smear his political opponent. If true, Secretary Pompeo is now a fact witness in the House impeachment inquiry. He should immediately cease intimidating department witnesses in order to protect himself and the president. Any effort to intimidate witnesses or prevent them from talking with Congress, including State Department employees, is illegal and will constitute evidence of obstruction of the impeachment inquiry. In response, Congress may infer from this obstruction that any withheld documents and testimony would reveal information that corroborates the whistleblower complaint. The committees are operating pursuant to our long-established authorities as well as the impeachment inquiry. We're committed to protecting witnesses from harassment and intimidation, and we expect their full compliance and that of the Department of State." End quote. While former ambassador to the Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, was scheduled to appear before the House Foreign Affairs Committee on Wednesday, she's now confirmed to appear on October 11th. The State Department's former special envoy for Ukraine, Kurt Volker, will appear as originally scheduled on Thursday. It'll be behind closed doors, and it's unknown whether a transcript of the deposition will be released to the public. Stay tuned. So it looks like there's need for a Schoolhouse Rock revival to teach the clueless president about the Constitution. Donald Trump on Tuesday escalated his already hyperbolic Twitter attacks on impeachment efforts, this time referring to the inquiry as a coup, tweeting, quote, "As I learn more and more each day, I am coming to the conclusion that what is taking place is not an impeachment, it is a coup." Well, a coup, or coup d'etat, is known as a rapid and often violent seizure of power from a government. That's not what's currently occurring. Impeachment is the legal procedure of removing a president from office as outlined in the Constitution. Meanwhile, the president and his acolytes continue to smear and attempt to unmask the unidentified whistleblower at the heart of the impeachment probe. Thankfully, cracks are forming in the armor. Senator Chuck Grassley, breaking with his Republican Party and the president, stepped up to defend the whistleblower after repeated attacks from the president. In a statement, Grassley said, This person appears to have followed the whistleblower protection laws and ought to be heard out and protected. We should always work to respect whistleblowers' requests for confidentiality. Chuck Grassley is the head of the powerful Senate Finance Committee. Believe it or not, there's other news happening. Seriously, the Secure and Fair Enforcement, or SAFE Banking Act, that would allow the financial sector to finally serve cannabis businesses, could make it to Trump's desk by the end of the year. Last week, the House passed it with bipartisan support in a 321 to 103 vote. Nearly half of the Republican caucus joined all Democrats, with the exception of Alabama's Terry Sewell, who voted against it. An unusual coalition of financial sector lobbyists, progressives, federal government skeptics, and law enforcement officials back the bill. It's now up to Mitch McConnell, who gets to decide whether or not it'll get a vote in the Senate. And a new book coming out next week from New York Times reporters Michael Shear and Julie Hirschfeld Davis, titled Border Wars, Inside Trump's Assault on Immigration, is already making headlines. An excerpt in Wednesday's New York Times explains how Trump talked about shooting migrants in the legs in order to slow them down after they cross the southern border. He was told that's not allowed. From the story, quote, privately, the president had often talked about fortifying a border wall with a water-filled trench stocked with snakes or alligators, prompting aides to seek a cost estimate. He wanted the wall electrified with spikes on top that could pierce human flesh. And he raged at his aides for making him, quote, look like an idiot. In other words, weak on immigration. Across the pond, Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Wednesday plans to unveil his final Brexit offer to the European Union and make it clear that if Brussels doesn't engage with the proposal, Britain will not negotiate and will depart without a deal on October 31st. So with less than a month until Britain is due to leave the EU, the future of the country's biggest trade and foreign policy shift in more than 40 years is uncertain. Britain could leave with a deal, without one, or not exit at all. Stay tuned. Moving to North Korea, the Trump administration and Pyongyang have agreed to resume working-level nuclear negotiations on Friday and Saturday following months of jockeying over international economic sanctions still in place, as well as North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. Trump and Kim Jong-un last met in June. But in advance of talks, North Korea, early Wednesday morning, fired a ballistic missile, possibly from a submarine. If confirmed, it would be the most provocative test by North Korea since it began talks with the United States in 2018. The State Department called on North Korea to, quote, refrain from provocations. Ooh, that was strong. And finally, in Hong Kong, office workers and high school students turned out Wednesday to denounce a policeman for shooting and wounding a teenager on Tuesday during the most violent clashes in nearly 4 months of unrest. More than 70 people were sent to the hospital. 25 police were wounded. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm sure it'll change soon. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports in the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener-supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com. Please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 36 degrees, an active frost warning as if you couldn't imagine one. And we're going to be nearly the same temperature yesterday as we were, or today as we were yesterday, and that was in the mid-60s. At least where the mothership is. Overnight lows are expected tonight in the mid-40s, though that active freeze warning will be active then as well, so we'll see. Right now we're fair conditions and should remain so throughout the day. Winds will be light and variable, and cloudy tonight, partly cloudy skies tomorrow, with a high of only 61. Very small chance of precipitation. Ragweed pollen is low. The air quality index is rated at good at 31 parts per million. And the daytime UV index is moderate at 4. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.07 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 92%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 58 and partly cloudy. Paris is 63 and partly cloudy. Rome is 75 and mostly cloudy. Kiev, 70 and fair. Kabul, 68 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong, 85 and fair. Tokyo is 72 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 60 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and sunny. And New York is 80 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in October. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Philip Pulela of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Vatican police raided the offices of the Holy See Secretary of State and its Financial Information Authority and took away documents, electronic devices, and other items as part of an investigation of suspected financial irregularities, a Vatican statement said. It was believed to be the first time the two departments were searched for evidence involving alleged financial crimes. Alleged. Why don't they just confess? Why? The Secretary of State, the most powerful, or the Secretariat of State, the most powerful department in the Vatican, is the nerve center of its bureaucracy and diplomacy and the administrative heart of the worldwide Catholic Church. Genuflect, brothers, genuflect. The AIF, headed by Swiss lawyer René Buhlhardt, is the financial controller with authority over all Vatican departments. The Vatican statement gave no details except to say that the operation was a follow-up to complaints filed in the summer by Vatican Bank and the Office of the Auditor General and were related to financial operations carried out over the course of time.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. French President Emmanuel Macron met Oleg Sentsov, the Ukrainian filmmaker freed in a prisoner swap after 4 years in a Russian gulag. They call them jails, but they're really gulags. Sentsov, deemed by some rights groups to be a political prisoner, was among 35 Ukrainian detainees who were swapped on September 7th and returned home in exchange for an equal number of prisoners that Russia wanted to bring back to their home. A few days after his release, the filmmaker said he planned to make films again and to champion the rights of prisoners in Russian jails. I have not chosen this work. The work has chosen me, Sentsov added. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. In fact, we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.